And now the government has slashed forecasts for the amount of electricity it expects wind farms to generate. Bit of a blow to Ed Miliband's net zero plans. Didn't the Energy Secretary of State state that these were going to give us, remember it well, cheap energy and save the world? Don't take my word for it. Here's the man himself.
And what I'm talking about today is absolutely part of the mission for growth of this government, because I'm here at a wind turbine factory here in Hull, employing 1,300 people, and honestly, the future is being built at this factory. The future of our country, the future of our energy system, the future of a growing economy, and I think that's what's so exciting about what we're doing today. We're talking about an age of clean electricity, which can give us energy security, lower bills, good jobs and growth, and tackle the climate crisis. So we're not just talking about it, we've got a plan to make it happen.
Well, that seems to have somehow come off the tracks. Maurice Cousins is campaign director at Net Zero Watch. Maurice, afternoon to you. There was a lot of blaze and fireworks around these kind of policies before they got into government. Since they've been in power, Ed Miliband's not stopped talking about it. Hundreds of thousands of jobs, which, by the way, we all know is a bit of a lie. But nonetheless, the big central point was that this is going to be cheaper and it's wind that's going to do it. And today we learn they are actually slashing the forecast for the amount of electricity that it expects wind farms to generate. What has gone wrong? Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Ian. Yes, it's been a dreadful few weeks. Actually, we're seeing an increasing number of stories which show that the government's sort of case for net zero has always been based really on sort of shaky foundations. And today is yet another example of where we hear figures that actually they've had to slash the load factor by about a quarter. It's basically saying that wind is not as reliable as previously claimed. And what this now means is that the official forecasts used by Parliament, the Climate Change Committee, even parts of the media that have claimed that net zero is feasible and affordable has actually now just shot up by hundreds of billions of pounds. And the sort of the case that net zero can be done affordably is crumbling, and this is just yet another example of that.
Yeah, and is this down, do you sense, Maurice, that it's like a lot of things in life, stuff that's invented or released onto the market too soon, or for want of a better way? Is it that, maybe in years to come we could, have this dream where the wind, literally free energy, would not only, it would blow beautifully in the fields, they'd have modified the wind turbines so they didn't look like big old horror stories in the countryside, so they would look acceptable and it would blow. And not just that, they'd have a little device which could store that energy as well and dispense it, and it's free. I mean, what a wonderful way to live. I mean, I don't know if that's going to be possible at some point. Maybe in 156 years time it might be, but right now this just feels like, do you remember when Bluetooth was first invented, and it seemed like a good idea, just didn't bloody work? And it seems that we're in a similar territory with these.
I wish what you said there was true, Ian. I really do, but unfortunately, I don't think it ever will be. And the reality is that the problem with a lot of this is that renewable energy is ultimately physically constrained. That is the real challenge here. What we have got is essentially low density intermittent forms of power generation. So relative to high density, more reliable forms of power generation, it is always going to be at a physical disadvantage to those other forms. So relative to, say things like gas, but also things like nuclear. So it doesn't always have to be fossil fuel generators. So this isn't necessarily a technological or innovation a challenge. It is a physical challenge, one that is ultimately governed by the laws of thermodynamics, and we're never going to be able to alter that reality, sadly.
What about the argument that comes forward from the kind of green lobby, I suppose, is that, yep, it's not providing all of our electricity, but it is providing some of it, and it never purported to provide all of it, so some of it is better than none of it. Does that argument stack up?
I think there is some truth in that. I don't think that that we should do with we could that if you look at, say, countries like China, or even, for example, say like the UAE, they are developing grids where they are having sort of sprinklings on the top which come from renewables, and so that you can have some generation that comes from it. But ultimately, the base of your grid needs to be firm, dense, reliable sources of generation. So that's really going to be things like gas, nuclear, and historically for this country, it was coal, but we phased that out for understandable reasons. But it's reliable and it's dense and it can deliver affordable sources of power.
And it's interesting that you mentioned nuclear there, which at one point the government wouldn't even talk about or entertain. And if they'd got to grips with it, even when the coalition were in power, we would right now be sitting here with an entire web of nuclear generators, rather than the stuff that is mostly owned by the French, that we're making no money out of what we do have here. We would have that. But of course, they said no. And then yet almost another calamitous moment in their energy policy, or their certainly green policies, because they keep doing things that you think would make Ed Miliband discombobulate and run out the room, like expanding airports and looking at oil fields and stuff. But, never threaten to take a red box away from a man with a bit of power, because they'll stay whatever the changing story is. And of course, we then heard Miliband himself, I think it was, talking about, if Labour were running Scotland, they'd look at nuclear as a possibility there.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a real tragedy that we've not pursued nuclear over the decades. It is a clean source of power, and it is very dense and secure. It's a tragedy that we have over-regulated it as a sector for a while now. So I think that there's been some research done by Britain Remade that has found that I think we're the most expensive country in the world for new nuclear generation. We often seem to top the wrong league tables when it comes to energy. The most expensive industrial energy prices, the most expensive place to build this stuff. So yes, we need to get a crack on with all of it. But the way to do that is to slash some of the unnecessary and burdensome regulation around it.
Yeah, and you'd think anybody could work that out, but it seems beyond the wit of some of our parliamentarians. Maurice, great to have you on. Nice to speak. Maurice Cousins is the campaign director at Net Zero Watch.